Hello guys, how are you everyone? Today we will explain Master of the Universe full movie part by part. So let's start. The boy who lost his world. There are some heroes who are born into greatness. They grow up surrounded by legends. They know exactly who they are, where they belong, and what they are supposed to become. And then there are heroes who spend their entire lives running from the place they were meant to call home. For Prince Adam, becoming He-Man doesn't begin with a magical transformation. It doesn't begin with a sword raised toward the sky. And it doesn't begin with a battle. It begins with separation. A child is torn away from his world. A boy grows up without understanding where he truly belongs. And somewhere far beyond the ordinary world he knows, an entire kingdom continues to exist without him. That kingdom is Eternia. A world of ancient magic, strange technology, powerful warriors, mysterious creatures and conflicts that seem almost impossible for an outsider to understand. But for Adam, Eternia isn't simply another planet. It is home. And home is exactly what he lost. That is what makes the story of Masters of the Universe more interesting than a simple superhero origin. Because beneath the armor, beneath the sword, beneath the supernatural strength, there is a much more human question. What happens when the person you were supposed to become is buried beneath years of running away from your past? And what happens when the world you left behind suddenly comes looking for you? The 2026 live-action film, directed by Travis Knight, places Prince Adam at the center of that question. Nicholas Galitzine plays Adam and He-Man, with Camila Mendes as Teela, Idris Elba as Duncan, and Jared Leto as Skeletor. Mattel investors. But before Adam can become the legendary warrior everyone knows as He-Man, he has to confront something much more frightening than any monster. His own identity. And that journey begins years before the main conflict. The child who didn't understand what he had lost. Imagine being a child and suddenly discovering that everything you know about yourself is incomplete. Your memories are fragmented. Your origins are mysterious. The place you once called home is impossibly far away. And the people who should have been part of your childhood have become distant figures in a story you can barely remember. That is the foundation of Adam's journey. According to Mattel's official description of the film, Adam was separated from his magical power sword after crashing to Earth as a 10-year-old, and years later the sword becomes the connection that takes him back toward Eternia. Mattel Corporate. That detail is crucial. Because the power sword isn't simply an object waiting for a hero. It represents the piece of Adam's life that was never completely destroyed. Everything else could be forgotten. His memories could fade. His identity could become uncertain. But the sword remains. And when it eventually returns to his life, it doesn't merely give Adam power. It forces him to remember. That is where the story becomes a coming-of-age story disguised as a fantasy adventure. Adam isn't simply searching for a planet. He is searching for himself. Earth was never really home. For years, Earth becomes Adam's reality. This creates an important contradiction. The longer Adam stays away from Eternia, the more ordinary his life can become. And ordinary life has a strange power. It gives people routines. It gives them familiar places. It gives them identities that don't require explanation. You wake up. You go somewhere. You meet people. You develop relationships. You learn how the world works. Eventually, the life you have becomes more real than the life you remember. That is especially powerful for someone like Adam. Because if Eternia exists only in fragments of memory, then how can he be certain it was ever truly his? Perhaps the past is something the mind exaggerates. Perhaps the strange memories are dreams. Perhaps the stories of another world belong to someone else. And perhaps the safest thing Adam can do is simply forget. But destiny rarely disappears just because someone refuses to acknowledge it. And the power sword becomes the physical reminder that Adam's past isn't finished with him. The power sword as a symbol of identity. A typical fantasy story treats a magical sword as a weapon. The hero discovers it. The hero learns how to use it. The hero becomes powerful. But the power sword works on another level. It is essentially a bridge. One side of that bridge is Earth. The other side is Eternia. And standing between them is Adam. That makes the sword important before Adam ever uses it. The object represents something he lost as a child. It represents his family, his history, his responsibilities, and ultimately, the person he has the potential to become. The sword is therefore not asking Adam a simple question like, "Are you strong enough?" It is asking, "Are you ready to know who you are?" Those are very different questions. Strength can be measured. Identity cannot. You can lift something heavy. You can defeat an enemy. You can survive a battle. But accepting your past requires something completely different. It requires honesty. And Adam has spent years living without the full truth. Why returning to Eternia is so dangerous. Going home sounds like a comforting idea. But Adam's home isn't waiting for him exactly as he remembers it. This is one of the most important elements of the story. When Adam eventually returns to Eternia, he doesn't discover a peaceful kingdom waiting for its missing prince. He finds a world that has changed. Skeletor has risen. The kingdom has suffered. The people Adam should have protected have been forced to survive without him. And suddenly his absence has consequences. This creates a fascinating emotional conflict. Adam can ask himself, "Why should I go back?" But the more painful question is, "How can I stay away?" Because once Adam understands what happened to Eternia, neutrality becomes almost impossible. He may not feel ready. He may not even fully understand the world. But the fact remains that he belongs to it. And that means its problems eventually become his problems. Part 2. The Power Sword. The Key to the Universe. There are weapons that are designed for war. There are weapons created to defend kingdoms. And there are weapons whose importance goes far beyond what they can do in battle. The Power Sword belongs to that final category. At first glance, it looks like the kind of legendary weapon that exists in almost every fantasy story. A powerful blade. An ancient object. A weapon carried by a chosen warrior. But in the world of Masters of the Universe, the Power Sword is much more than a sword. It is a connection between worlds, a reminder of forgotten origins, a gateway to extraordinary power, a symbol of authority, and ultimately, one of the most important objects in the entire mythology surrounding He-Man. Because the story of the Power Sword isn't really about a piece of metal. It is about what happens when power becomes connected to identity. The sword does not simply ask whether someone is strong enough to wield it. It asks whether that person understands what strength is supposed to mean. And that distinction becomes increasingly important as Adam's journey pulls him deeper into the conflict surrounding Eternia. The universe he is entering is filled with people who want power for completely different reasons. Some want to protect their homes. Some want answers. Some want revenge. Some want control. And some believe that possessing enough power gives them the right to rule everyone else. The Power Sword stands at the center of that conflict. It is the object that can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. But the transformation itself is only the beginning, because once the power is gained, another question appears. What will the person holding that power do with it? That question is what makes the Power Sword so important. And to understand why this weapon matters, we have to look beyond the spectacular transformation of Adam into He-Man. we have to understand what the sword represents. The weapon that is more than a weapon. A normal sword has one basic purpose. It is made to cut. Its effectiveness depends on its material, its design, the person using it, and the circumstances of the fight. But a magical weapon operates differently. Its importance comes from the story attached to it. A legendary weapon becomes powerful because people believe in what it represents. The power sword belongs to that tradition. Its significance doesn't come only from its ability to provide Adam with extraordinary strength. It represents access. Access to a hidden part of his identity. Access to the world of Eternia. Access to a power that has been waiting for the right moment to emerge. And because the sword is connected to Adam's transformation, every appearance of the weapon carries a question beneath the action. Is Adam ready? Not physically, emotionally, mentally, morally. That is the real test. Because becoming powerful is easy in fantasy stories, becoming responsible with power is much harder. Why the sword matters before it is even raised. One of the most interesting things about the power sword is that its importance begins before Adam fully understands what it can do. The sword already has meaning. It carries a history that existed before Adam's adult life. That means the weapon is not something he simply discovers. It is something that reconnects him with a reality that has been missing from his life. This changes the way we should understand the sword. It isn't simply an object Adam obtains. It is an object that returns something to him. And what it returns is much larger than physical strength. It returns a connection. For years, Adam's life has been defined by separation. The sword represents the opposite. Connection. A connection to a place. A connection to a past. A connection to a legacy. And eventually, a connection to a destiny. That is why the sword feels almost inevitable. Adam may have spent years away from Eternia, but the story never completely loses its connection to him. The sword is the physical proof. The power sword and the idea of choice. Destiny is one of the biggest concepts in heroic mythology. Many stories tell us that a hero is chosen. But there is a problem with being chosen. If everything is predetermined, then choice becomes meaningless. If Adam is destined to become He-Man, does he actually have any control over his future? The power sword helps create an answer. The weapon can provide access to power. But Adam still has to decide what kind of person he will be. That distinction is crucial. Destiny may place a person at a crossroads. Choice determines which direction that person takes. The sword can open the door. Adam must walk through it. And that makes the transformation more meaningful. He isn't simply becoming powerful because the universe decided that he should. He is accepting the responsibility attached to that power. The difference between power and purpose. Power by itself is meaningless. A person can possess enormous strength and still have no idea what to do with it. A powerful weapon can change a battlefield, but it cannot determine whether the person holding it is fighting for the right reason. This is where the power sword becomes connected to the larger philosophy of He-Man. The weapon provides capability. Purpose has to come from the person. That means the sword doesn't automatically make Adam heroic. It gives him the ability to act. The morality behind those actions comes from Adam himself. And that becomes increasingly important when we compare him with people who seek power for very different reasons. Part 3. The Man Behind the Mask, Why Spider-Man's Hardest Battle Has Only Just Begun. Hook. Every superhero has an enemy. Sometimes it's a powerful villain. Sometimes it's an alien invasion. Sometimes it's the end of the universe. But for Peter Parker, the greatest enemy has always been something much simpler. Loneliness. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that every person who ever laughed with you, cried with you, trusted you, or loved you, has forgotten you completely. Your closest friends walk past you like strangers. The woman you love looks into your eyes without recognizing your face. Your greatest sacrifices have disappeared from history. No applause. No gratitude. No memories. Just silence. That heartbreaking reality is where Spider-Man, Brand New Day truly begins. Unlike previous Spider-Man adventures filled with massive crossover events and multiversal chaos, this chapter promises something far more personal. It's the story of a young man trying to rebuild his life from nothing while carrying memories that no one else shares. Today, we're exploring why Brand New Day could become one of the most emotionally powerful Spider-Man films ever made, how Marvel reached this turning point, and why Peter Parker's greatest challenge has never been defeating villains, but learning how to live after losing everything. This is the story of the man behind the mask. For decades, Spider-Man has represented something different from almost every other superhero. Bruce Wayne inherited unimaginable wealth. Thor was born a prince. Captain Marvel gained extraordinary cosmic abilities. Doctor Strange mastered the mystic arts. Peter Parker, however, has always remained ordinary. He worries about money. He worries about school. He worries about work. He worries about disappointing the people he loves. Even after gaining incredible powers, Peter never stopped being human. That humanity is the foundation of every great Spider-Man story. His victories matter because they come with real consequences. Every choice costs him something. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's happiness. Sometimes it's the people closest to him. The responsibility he carries is invisible to everyone except himself. And that's what makes his journey so compelling. When Marvel Studios introduced Spider-Man into the MCU, they chose a different path from previous films. Audiences didn't watch Peter get bitten by the radioactive spider. They didn't witness Uncle Ben's death. Instead, they met a young hero who had already taken his first steps toward becoming Spider-Man. This decision allowed Marvel to focus on a different kind of growth. Rather than showing Peter discovering his powers, they explored what those powers meant in a world filled with legendary heroes. Standing beside Iron Man inspired him. Fighting alongside the Avengers challenged him. But eventually, Peter had to learn that no mentor could make his decisions for him. Every lesson brought him closer to independence. Tony Stark played a major role in Peter's early journey. He believed in Peter before the rest of the world even knew Spider-Man existed. He gave him opportunities that no ordinary teenager could have imagined. Advanced technology, powerful suits, access to the Avengers. Yet Tony also expected Peter to think for himself. One of the most memorable lessons from Homecoming came when Peter lost the suit. Tony reminded him that if he couldn't be Spider-Man without the suit, then perhaps he shouldn't have it at all. At the time, Peter didn't fully understand those words. Years later, they became more meaningful than ever. After the events of No Way Home, the advanced suits were gone. The powerful connections were gone. The Avengers were gone. Peter was left with nothing except his own determination. Ironically, losing everything finally made him the Spider-Man Tony always believed he could become. Another defining aspect of Peter Parker's story has always been sacrifice. Heroes often save the world. Spider-Man usually saves the world by sacrificing his own happiness. That pattern repeats throughout nearly every version of the character. He misses important moments. He struggles to maintain relationships. He carries enormous guilt over people he couldn't save. Yet despite every setback, he chooses to keep helping others. Not because someone rewards him, not because people admire him, but because he believes it's the right thing to do. That unwavering sense of responsibility is what separates Peter Parker from countless other superheroes. He doesn't fight because it's easy. He fights because someone has to. The conclusion of No Way Home elevated that idea to an entirely new level. Faced with a collapsing multiverse, Peter made the ultimate decision. He allowed Doctor Strange's spell to erase every memory of Peter Parker from the world. It wasn't an act of desperation. It was an act of love. He chose everyone else's safety over his own future. He accepted a life of complete isolation if it meant protecting the people he cared about. That choice defines who Peter Parker truly is. Not his powers, not his intelligence, not his suit, his willingness to sacrifice everything for others. As Brand New Day begins, Peter enters adulthood under circumstances unlike anything he has experienced before. No family waiting at home. No close friends calling his phone. No classmates recognizing his face. No mentor offering guidance. Every day becomes an opportunity to rebuild. Finding a place to live. Finding work. Creating a new routine. Designing a new Spider-Man suit with limited resources. These ordinary struggles may appear small compared to battles against cosmic threats, but they carry enormous emotional weight. Because this is the first time Peter must face life entirely on his own. He is no longer protected by anyone else's shadow. He must become the hero and the man he chooses to be. One of the most compelling questions surrounding Brand New Day is not who the villain will be. It's who Peter Parker will become. Will isolation make him stronger? Will loneliness change his outlook? Can he open his heart again after losing everyone he loves? Marvel has kept these answers carefully hidden, allowing audiences to experience Peter's next chapter without knowing every twist in advance. That uncertainty adds to the excitement. The future is unknown, just like Peter's. And perhaps that's the true meaning behind the Part 4A Hero Without a Home. Why Brand New Day could be Spider-Man's most human story yet. What if the hardest battle a superhero ever faced wasn't against a villain, but against an empty apartment? No family waiting at home. No best friend sending a message. No one calling your name. No one remembering your birthday. No one even knowing you exist. That isn't the beginning of a horror movie. It's the new reality of Peter Parker. After saving not just New York but the entire multiverse, Peter receives no celebration, no recognition, and no reward. Instead, he steps into a world where every meaningful connection has disappeared. For most people, that kind of loneliness would be unbearable. For Spider-Man, it's just another responsibility. And that is what makes Spider-Man Brand New Day one of the most fascinating chapters in Marvel Studios' history. Rather than asking how Spider-Man will save the world, this story asks a much deeper question. How do you save yourself when everything that made you who you are has vanished? Today, we're exploring the creative vision behind Brand New Day, why Marvel chose this direction after No Way Home, and how this film represents the rebirth of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that generations of fans have loved for decades. Spider-Man has always been different from other superheroes. Most heroes become stronger as their stories progress. Peter Parker often becomes more burdened. Every victory creates another sacrifice. Every success demands another loss. That tragic cycle has defined Spider-Man since his earliest comic book adventures. He saves strangers. He misses family dinners. He defeats criminals. He loses relationships. He protects cities. He sacrifices personal happiness. Unlike many heroes who eventually escape their hardships, Peter Parker continues carrying them throughout his life. That isn't a weakness. It's the reason audiences connect with him. Because life rarely becomes easier simply because someone is doing the right thing. The Marvel Cinematic Universe introduced audiences to a version of Spider-Man unlike any before. Instead of beginning alone, Peter entered a world already filled with legendary heroes. He admired Tony Stark. He worked beside the Avengers. He experienced events that few superheroes could ever imagine. But beneath those extraordinary adventures remained the same ordinary teenager. A young man trying to balance school, friendships, responsibility, and fear. That balance became increasingly difficult as Peter's world grew larger. By the end of No Way Home, the universe had changed, but so had Peter. The boy who once looked to Iron Man for guidance now stood completely on his own. No mentor. No support system. Only responsibility. Marvel's decision to end No Way Home with Peter living alone marked one of the boldest creative choices in the MCU. There was no triumphant celebration, no reunion, no emotional reward. Instead, audiences watched Peter quietly move into a modest apartment, unpack a few belongings, and begin sewing a homemade Spider-Man suit. That scene lasted only a short time, yet it communicated something incredibly important. The era of the student was over. The era of the independent Spider-Man had finally begun. For longtime comic readers, this felt familiar. For newer audiences, it represented an entirely fresh beginning. The title Brand New Day perfectly reflects Peter's emotional journey. A new day doesn't erase yesterday. It grows from it. Peter cannot undo the sacrifices he made. He cannot force people to remember him. He cannot reclaim the life he once had. Instead, he must create a new one. That idea resonates because everyone experiences change. Dreams evolve. Friendships fade. Life moves forward whether we're ready or not. Spider-Man's story reminds us that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means carrying its lessons into the future. One of the greatest strengths of Spider-Man has always been his relatability. He isn't perfect. He makes mistakes. He doubts himself. He worries constantly. Sometimes he fails. Yet despite every setback, he refuses to stop helping others. That persistence has inspired generations of readers and moviegoers alike. Spider-Man isn't extraordinary because he never falls. He's extraordinary because he always gets back up. Again. And again. And again. Another exciting aspect of Brand New Day is the opportunity to explore New York City from a more grounded perspective. Previous MCU Spider-Man films often balanced neighborhood adventures with global threats. This new chapter appears positioned to return Peter to the streets where his legend first began. Helping ordinary citizens. Stopping everyday crimes. Protecting neighborhoods rather than entire planets. That smaller scale doesn't reduce the stakes. Instead, it makes every decision feel more personal. Because when Spider-Man saves one person, that one person becomes the entire world to someone else. Tom Holland's portrayal has evolved alongside the character. The energetic teenager audiences met years ago has gradually transformed into a more mature and emotionally layered hero. Each challenge has left its mark. The loss of Tony Stark, the responsibility of protecting mysterious technology, battles across the multiverse, the death of Aunt May, the heartbreaking decision to erase himself from everyone's memory. These experiences shape the Spider-Man audiences will meet in Brand New Day. He carries scars that cannot be seen, yet those invisible wounds often define true heroism. Marvel Studios has intentionally kept much of the film's plot under wraps. That secrecy has encouraged endless discussion among fans. What kind of threats will Peter face? Who will become his allies? Can relationships once thought lost ever be rebuilt? While speculation continues, the officially revealed information points toward a story focused on growth, resilience, and responsibility rather than simply larger action sequences. That approach feels appropriate. Spider-Man has never needed the biggest explosions to tell the biggest stories. Sometimes, the quietest moments become the most unforgettable. At its heart, Spider-Man, Brand New Day represents hope. Not the kind of hope that promises life will become easy, but the kind that reminds us tomorrow is another chance. Part 5: The Legacy of Responsibility, How Brand New Day is Redefining Spider-Man for a New Generation. Heroes are often remembered for the battles they win. Spider-Man is remembered for the sacrifices no one ever sees. Every bruise heals. Every broken building can be rebuilt. But some sacrifices leave scars that never disappear. Peter Parker understands that better than anyone. He has watched mentors fall. He has lost family. He has carried guilt that no teenager should ever have to endure. And just when it seemed life couldn't become more painful, he made the ultimate choice, to save the multiverse by allowing everyone to forget that Peter Parker ever existed. No applause. No headlines. No recognition. Only silence. That silence becomes the foundation of Spider-Man, Brand New Day, a story not about becoming a superhero, but about remaining one when the world has forgotten every good thing you've ever done. This isn't simply another chapter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's the beginning of a completely different era. Today, we'll explore how Marvel is reshaping Spider-Man's future, why this film matters far beyond action and spectacle, and why Peter Parker's greatest strength has never been his superpowers, but his unwavering determination to keep doing the right thing, even when nobody knows his name. For over 60 years, Spider-Man has stood apart from nearly every other superhero ever created. He isn't defined by wealth. He isn't defined by royalty. He isn't defined by military power or cosmic abilities. He's defined by choice. Every day, Peter Parker wakes up with the opportunity to ignore responsibility. He could choose an easier life. He could stop risking everything. He could finally put himself first. Yet every single day, he chooses otherwise. That simple decision has become one of the most inspiring ideas in superhero fiction. Because anyone can dream of having superpowers, far fewer people are willing to carry responsibility without expecting anything in return. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has gradually transformed Peter Parker through a carefully constructed journey. When audiences first met him, he was enthusiastic, inexperienced, and eager to prove himself. Meeting Iron Man felt like a dream. Joining the Avengers felt impossible. Every mission became another lesson. Every mistake became another opportunity to grow. Marvel resisted the temptation to make Peter instantly perfect. Instead, audiences watched him fail. They watched him doubt himself. They watched him mature through experience rather than instant success. That evolution made every triumph feel earned. By the conclusion of No Way Home, Peter was no longer searching for approval. He had become someone capable of making impossible decisions alone. The ending of No Way Home fundamentally changed the emotional landscape of Spider-Man's story. The spell cast to protect reality erased Peter Parker from everyone's memory. Friends continued living their lives. The world continued moving forward. Only Peter remembered what had been lost. That lonely reality becomes the emotional heartbeat of Brand New Day. Rather than focusing on reclaiming the past, Peter must learn how to build a future from nothing. It's an idea that feels both deeply personal and universally relatable. Everyone reaches moments where life changes unexpectedly. Plans disappear. Relationships end. Dreams evolve. The future no longer resembles what once seemed certain. Peter Parker now stands at exactly that crossroads. One of the most fascinating aspects of Spider-Man is that he never allows hardship to erase compassion. Despite everything he has lost, Peter continues helping strangers. He rescues people who don't know him. He protects neighborhoods that will never celebrate him. He risks his life for individuals who may never even see his face. That's what separates Spider-Man from many traditional heroes. Recognition has never been his motivation. Doing the right thing has always been enough. Marvel Studios appears ready to embrace a more grounded storytelling approach with Brand New Day. Rather than constantly escalating toward larger cosmic conflicts, this new chapter offers an opportunity to return Spider-Man to the streets of New York City, the place where his legend truly belongs. Helping ordinary people, stopping everyday crimes, listening to the concerns of his community. These smaller moments often reveal far more about Peter Parker than world-ending battles ever could. Because Spider-Man has always been the hero closest to ordinary life. His greatest victories aren't measured only by enemies defeated. They're measured by lives quietly changed for the better. Tom Holland enters this chapter carrying more emotional history than any previous cinematic Spider-Man. Years of adventure have shaped his character into someone far more resilient than the teenager audiences first met. But resilience doesn't mean the absence of pain. It means learning to continue despite it. Peter has experienced grief, loss, disappointment, isolation. Yet none of those experiences have destroyed his hope. Instead, they've strengthened his understanding of responsibility. Every sacrifice has reinforced the same lesson. Power matters, but character matters even more. The title brand New Day symbolizes more than a fresh beginning. It represents renewal without forgetting. Peter cannot erase his memories. He cannot undo his sacrifices. He cannot recover the years that disappeared. But he can decide what kind of person he wants to become tomorrow. That message resonates because every audience member understands the desire for another chance. A chance to grow. A chance to improve. A chance to begin again. Spider-Man reminds us that every sunrise offers exactly that opportunity. Marvel has wisely kept many story details confidential, allowing anticipation to build naturally. Official announcements have confirmed the film's development, principal cast, and creative team, while leaving the central narrative largely undisclosed. This approach preserves the excitement of discovery. Instead of revealing every surprise before release, audiences will experience Peter's next journey alongside him. Sometimes the greatest moments in cinema are the ones nobody expects. Ultimately, Spider-Man, Brand New Day isn't simply about another superhero adventure. It's about resilience. It's about identity. It's about hope surviving even after unimaginable loss. Part 6. Masters of the Universe. The warriors who stood beside He-Man. When people hear the name He-Man, they usually imagine one figure. A powerful warrior. A legendary sword. The symbol of Grayskull. The strongest hero in Eternia. But there is something easy to forget. He-Man was never truly alone. Behind the legendary hero was a group of warriors who had already been fighting long before Adam fully understood his destiny. They were not simply side characters. They were the people who connected Adam to the world he had left behind. And in a kingdom destroyed by war, that connection became more important than ever. Because when Prince Adam returned to Eternia after 15 years away, he was not coming back to a peaceful kingdom. He was returning to a world that had already been fighting for survival. The people around him had experienced the war. They had witnessed the destruction. They had lost friends. They had lost family. And while Adam had been living far away, they had remained in Eternia. That difference created an important question. Could Adam really become their leader? Or was he simply a prince returning to a world he no longer understood? The answer would depend on the warriors who stood beside him. And among them, 3 figures became especially important to his journey. Teela, Duncan, and the mysterious collection of heroes who refused to let Eternia disappear. Each one represented something different. Teela represented courage and loyalty. Duncan represented experience, responsibility, and the pain of failure. And together, they helped Adam understand that being He-Man did not mean fighting alone. It meant becoming part of something bigger. This is the story of the warriors behind the legend. And more importantly, the story of why He-Man could never have saved Eternia without them. Adam's first challenge after returning is not defeating Skeletor. It is understanding the people who stayed behind. He remembers some of them from his childhood. But memory can be misleading. When you are young, heroes appear almost invincible. You remember the strength. You remember the victories. You remember the stories. But you rarely remember the fear. As an adult, Adam sees something different. The warriors of Eternia are not perfect. They are tired. They are damaged. They have made mistakes. But they are still standing. And that is what makes them heroic. Duncan is perhaps the clearest example. Known as Man-at-Arms, Duncan is not simply a fighter. He is a builder, inventor, strategist, and warrior. His knowledge of technology makes him one of the most valuable members of Eternia's resistance. But his greatest strength is not the machines he creates. It is his experience. Duncan has seen what happens when a kingdom falls. He has seen the consequences of failure, and that experience gives him something Adam does not have. Perspective. Adam has destiny. Duncan has experience. Adam has the sword of power. Duncan understands the battlefield. Adam can become the strongest warrior in the universe. Duncan knows that strength alone does not win wars. This creates a natural balance between them. Adam represents what Eternia could become. Duncan represents what Eternia has already survived. And their relationship becomes important because Adam needs someone who understands the reality behind the legend. A magical sword cannot explain strategy. Power cannot replace knowledge. And confidence cannot replace experience. Duncan understands this. That is why he can challenge Adam when necessary. And that is why Adam needs him. A hero who never listens eventually becomes dangerous. Adam has to learn that leadership does not mean being the loudest person in the room. Sometimes leadership means listening to the person who has already made the mistakes you are about to make. Duncan carries the weight of his own mistakes. He believes he failed the royal family. He carries guilt over what happened to Eternia. And that guilt shapes him. But his story contains an important lesson. Failure does not automatically disqualify someone from becoming a hero. Sometimes failure teaches a person exactly what they need to know. Duncan's return to the fight is therefore more than another warrior joining Adam. It is the return of someone who had lost confidence in himself, and that mirrors Adam's own journey. Both men have something to prove. Adam has to prove that he can become the hero Eternia needs. Duncan has to prove that his past failures do not define his future. Their paths are different, but their emotional destination is similar. They both have to stand again, and that is one of the most powerful ideas in the story. Eternia does not need perfect people. It needs people who refuse to stay down. That idea becomes even stronger when we look at Teela. Teela is not simply another warrior beside Adam. She is connected to the emotional center of the story. Her relationship with Adam carries years of history. She remembers the person he was, but she also sees the person he is becoming. That gives her a unique role. She does not simply see He-Man. She sees Adam. And that matters because heroes can easily become symbols. Once everyone starts seeing He-Man as the legendary warrior, they can forget that there is still a human being underneath the armor. Teela helps keep Adam connected to that humanity. She reminds him that strength is not enough. There are people behind every battle. There are relationships behind every decision. And there are consequences behind every victory. Her courage also comes from a different place than Adam's. Adam has extraordinary power. Teela has to rely on skill, intelligence, instinct, and determination. That makes her strength feel different. She does not need to be the strongest person in the room to matter. She needs to be willing to act. Part 7. The Forgotten Hero, Why Spider-Man's greatest enemy may be his own past. History remembers legends. But what happens when history forgets one? Imagine saving the universe, only to discover that no one remembers your sacrifice. No statues, no celebrations, no grateful friends, no family waiting for you. The world moves forward as if you never existed. For Peter Parker, that nightmare became reality. He didn't lose because he wasn't strong enough. He lost because doing the right thing demanded the ultimate price. And now, with Spider-Man: Brand New Day, Marvel Studios begins a story unlike anything we've seen before. A story where the greatest challenge isn't defeating evil, but rebuilding a life that has already disappeared. Today, we'll explore how Spider-Man reached this point, why Marvel chose this bold direction, and how Brand New Day could become one of the most emotionally mature chapters in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because, sometimes, the hardest part of being a hero isn't fighting villains. It's learning to live after the battle is over. Spider-Man has always been known as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. At first glance, that title sounds simple. It suggests a hero who protects local communities rather than chasing worldwide fame. But there's a deeper meaning hidden inside those words. A neighborhood is built on relationships. People know each other's names. They trust one another. They remember acts of kindness. Peter Parker has always fought to protect those connections. Ironically, after No Way Home, those very connections disappeared from his own life. He still protects the neighborhood. The neighborhood simply doesn't know who he is anymore. That emotional contradiction lies at the heart of Brand New Day. Throughout Marvel history, Spider-Man has never been defined by victories alone. Every success comes with consequences. Stopping one disaster often creates another challenge. Saving strangers sometimes means disappointing loved ones. Balancing those impossible choices has always separated Peter Parker from many other superheroes. His greatest battles aren't fought only against villains. They're fought within himself. Every decision forces him to ask the same question: what is the right thing to do? Not the easiest. Not the safest. The right thing. That commitment to responsibility has become Spider-Man's greatest superpower. When Peter first entered the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everything felt exciting. Tony Stark believed in him. The Avengers accepted him. His future appeared brighter than ever. But Marvel carefully avoided making Peter's journey too comfortable. Every movie quietly removed another layer of security. Tony Stark died. Peter faced public exposure. Enemies targeted the people he loved. Finally, reality itself demanded a sacrifice unlike anything he had ever imagined. Rather than protecting his own happiness, Peter chose to protect everyone else. That single decision transformed him forever. One reason Spider-Man continues connecting with audiences is because his struggles feel authentic. Most people will never battle supervillains. Few will travel through the multiverse. But everyone understands loneliness. Everyone understands disappointment. Everyone experiences moments when life changes unexpectedly. Peter Parker simply experiences those emotions on an extraordinary scale. His pain reminds us of our own. His perseverance inspires us to continue. That's why Spider-Man has remained relevant across generations. He isn't perfect. He's human. The title Brand New Day carries remarkable emotional weight. A new beginning isn't the same as forgetting the past. It's choosing not to let the past define the future. Peter remembers every friendship, every conversation, every promise, every sacrifice. Those memories still shape him, even if nobody else shares them. That imbalance creates one of the most unique emotional situations ever explored in a superhero film. The audience remembers. Peter remembers. The world does not. Marvel Studios appears to be embracing a quieter, more grounded approach to Spider-Man's future. Rather than relying entirely on increasingly larger threats, this new chapter offers an opportunity to focus once again on character. Who is Peter Parker without recognition? Who is Spider-Man without a support system? Can hope survive isolation? These questions carry emotional stakes that no explosion or visual effect can replace. Because great stories aren't remembered only for spectacle. They're remembered for truth. One fascinating aspect of Peter Parker's character is that he never allows suffering to destroy his compassion. He continues helping strangers. He continues risking his safety. He continues believing that every life matters. That optimism isn't naive. It's courageous, especially after everything he has lost. Many people would become bitter. Peter becomes more determined. Many people would stop trying. Peter keeps moving. That resilience defines true heroism. Tom Holland now enters perhaps the most significant phase of his portrayal. Earlier films explored Peter's excitement. Now the focus shifts toward maturity. Responsibility no longer feels like an adventure. It feels like daily life. Every morning begins with uncertainty. Every evening ends with another sacrifice. Yet Peter never questions whether helping others is worthwhile. That quiet consistency has always been Spider-Man's defining characteristic. Marvel has officially confirmed the continuation of Peter Parker's story while keeping many narrative details secret. This approach allows audiences to experience genuine surprise when the film arrives. Rather than revealing every major moment beforehand, the studio has chosen to preserve mystery. That decision reflects confidence in the character himself. Spider-Man doesn't need constant twists to remain compelling. Peter Parker's emotional journey has always been enough. Ultimately, Spider-Man: Brand New Day represents more than another superhero sequel. It represents renewal, growth, acceptance, the understanding that while yesterday cannot be changed, tomorrow remains unwritten. Peter Parker enters this new chapter carrying memories nobody else possesses. He walks through a city that no longer recognizes him. He protects people who will never know his name. And somehow, he still smiles behind the mask. Part 8. Price of being Spider-Man: Why every new beginning comes with a sacrifice. There is an old saying, every ending is the beginning of something new. But nobody ever talks about what happens in between. The silence, the loneliness, the uncertainty. For Peter Parker, that silence became his new reality. After risking everything to save the multiverse, he didn't return home as a celebrated hero. He returned to an empty apartment, a city that had forgotten his name, friends who no longer remembered the moments they shared, a future with no guarantees. Most heroes earn peace after making the ultimate sacrifice. Spider-Man earned another chance to struggle. And perhaps that's exactly why millions of people continue to see themselves in Peter Parker. Because real life rarely rewards the people who do the right thing. Sometimes, doing the right thing simply gives you another difficult day to face. That is the emotional foundation of Spider-Man: Brand New Day. A story not about destiny, but about choice. Not about fame, but about responsibility. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the next evolution of Marvel's most relatable hero and exploring why this chapter could become one of the defining stories of Spider-Man's cinematic legacy. Spider-Man has always represented ordinary people living extraordinary lives. Unlike many superheroes, Peter Parker never wanted fame. He never wanted power. He never dreamed of becoming a global symbol. He simply wanted to help. That simple motivation has remained unchanged through decades of comic books, animated series, video games, and films. Technology changes. Costumes evolve. Villains come and go. But Peter Parker's heart has never changed. That's why every generation discovers Spider-Man as if he were created just for them. His struggles are timeless. When Marvel Studios introduced Spider-Man into the MCU, they intentionally avoided repeating the familiar origin story. Instead of showing the radioactive spider bite or Uncle Ben's death once again, audiences met a young Peter already trying to balance heroism with everyday life. That decision allowed Marvel to explore something different. Rather than asking, "How did Peter become Spider-Man?" the films asked, "How does Peter become the Spider-Man he is meant to be?" Each adventure answered part of that question. Every victory came with another lesson. Every mistake became another step toward maturity. Tony Stark became one of Peter's earliest mentors. Their relationship extended beyond technology. Tony recognized something inside Peter that few others noticed. Compassion, curiosity, selflessness. He believed Peter possessed the character required to become a true hero. Yet Tony also understood that one day Peter would have to stand alone. No mentor can fight another person's battles forever. Eventually, every student must discover their own path. Brand New Day represents that moment. For the first time in the MCU, Peter Parker truly belongs to no one except himself. The ending of No Way Home fundamentally transformed Spider-Man's future. The spell that protected reality erased Peter Parker from the memories of everyone who knew him. It wasn't a temporary setback. It wasn't a misunderstanding waiting to be corrected. It was a permanent sacrifice. Peter remembers every friendship, every conversation, every promise, yet nobody remembers him. That heartbreaking imbalance creates emotional storytelling opportunities unlike anything previously explored in the MCU. Instead of rebuilding a superhero team, Peter must rebuild a human life. One of Spider-Man's defining qualities has always been resilience. Resilience isn't pretending pain doesn't exist. It's continuing despite pain. Peter Parker understands loss better than most heroes. He has experienced grief, disappointment, fear, loneliness. Yet none of those emotions have changed his belief that helping others is always worthwhile. That unwavering optimism separates him from many characters across superhero fiction. Even after losing everything, he refuses to lose hope. Another fascinating aspect of Brand New Day is its potential return to a more grounded style of storytelling. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has explored cosmic wars, alternate realities, magical dimensions, and universe-threatening dangers. Spider-Man offers something different, a reminder that one person's safety matters just as much as saving the universe. Helping a frightened child, stopping a robbery, protecting neighbors, listening to ordinary people. These smaller moments have always defined Spider-Man more than grand spectacles. Because Peter Parker understands something many heroes forget. Every life is important, no matter how small the moment appears. The title itself reflects renewal. A Brand New Day isn't about forgetting yesterday. It's about refusing to let yesterday become the end of the story. Peter cannot recover the life he lost. He cannot erase grief. He cannot restore forgotten memories. But he can wake up tomorrow and make another good decision. That message resonates because everyone experiences setbacks. Everyone faces uncertainty. Everyone reaches moments where the future seems impossible to imagine. Spider-Man reminds us that hope isn't found by changing the past. Hope is found by choosing the future. Tom Holland now steps into the most mature phase of his Spider-Man journey. Gone is the teenager searching for approval. In his place stands a young man carrying invisible burdens that no one else can understand. His greatest battles may no longer be physical. They may be emotional. Can he trust people again? Can he build new friendships? Can he create a life worth living despite everything he has lost? Those questions promise a deeply personal story that extends far beyond superhero action. Marvel Studios has officially confirmed the continuation of Peter Parker's story, while wisely keeping many important plot details secret. That mystery has encouraged excitement without revealing the film's emotional core. Fans know Peter's journey continues, but exactly where it leads remains unknown. And perhaps that's fitting, because Peter himself doesn't know what tomorrow looks like. He's discovering the future one day at a time. Just like the audience. At its heart, Spider-Man, Brand New Day is about beginning again after unimaginable loss. It reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite fear. Part 10. From Hero to Legend, Why Brand New Day is Spider-Man's most important chapter yet. Legends aren't created when everything goes according to plan. They're created when everything falls apart. Peter Parker knows that better than anyone. He has defeated powerful enemies. He has traveled across the multiverse. He has fought beside Earth's mightiest heroes. Yet none of those moments define who he truly is. The moment that changed Peter Parker forever wasn't a victory. It was a goodbye. A goodbye no one else remembers. The entire world moved on. His closest friends built new lives. His greatest sacrifices vanished from everyone's memory. And somehow, Peter chose to keep being Spider-Man anyway. No audience. No recognition, no reward, only responsibility. That single choice marks the beginning of Spider-Man, Brand New Day, a story that promises to redefine one of the most beloved superheroes ever created. Today, we're exploring how Peter Parker reached this turning point, why Marvel Studios decided to give Spider-Man a fresh beginning, and why this chapter may become the emotional centerpiece of Tom Holland's entire Spider-Man journey. Because sometimes, the greatest heroes aren't remembered by the world. They're remembered by the lives they quietly protect. For decades, Spider-Man has represented something unique within superhero storytelling. He isn't extraordinary because he possesses incredible abilities. He's extraordinary because he refuses to let hardship change who he is. Most people become heroes after gaining power. Peter Parker became a hero after accepting responsibility. That distinction has always defined the character. His powers allow him to save people. His character gives him the reason to do it. Without compassion, Spider-Man would simply be another powerful individual. With compassion, he becomes a symbol of hope. The Marvel Cinematic Universe introduced audiences to a younger Peter Parker than ever before. He admired the Avengers. He dreamed of proving himself. He believed becoming a superhero would solve many of life's problems. Instead, it introduced even greater challenges. Every adventure taught Peter something new. Responsibility couldn't be avoided. Trust had to be earned. Mistakes carried consequences. Slowly, the optimistic teenager matured into someone capable of making impossible decisions without expecting anything in return. That growth happened naturally over several films. Marvel wasn't simply creating another Spider-Man. They were building a complete coming-of-age story. Tony Stark played a significant role during Peter's early years. Their relationship extended beyond technology and superhero missions. Tony recognized Peter's potential long before Peter recognized it himself. He challenged him. He encouraged him. Sometimes he disappointed him. But every lesson prepared Peter for a future where no mentor would remain beside him. That future finally arrived after No Way Home. For the first time, Peter Parker faced the world completely alone. No Iron Man. No Happy Hogan. No friends who remembered his past. Only himself. The conclusion of No Way Home stands among the most emotionally significant endings in superhero cinema. Rather than celebrating victory, Peter quietly accepted loss. He understood that restoring his old life would endanger countless innocent people. So he let it go. He watched the people he loved continue living without him. He resisted the temptation to reveal the truth, not because he lacked courage, because he loved them enough to let them move forward. That quiet sacrifice speaks louder than any battle. As Brand New Day begins, Peter enters an unfamiliar stage of life. He must build everything again. A home, a routine, a future. The challenges awaiting him may appear ordinary compared to previous adventures. Finding work, paying bills, balancing daily responsibilities. Yet those ordinary struggles have always formed the heart of Spider-Man's identity. Peter has never stopped being an everyday person, even while saving the world. One reason Spider-Man remains timeless is his ability to inspire without perfection. He fails. He learns. He apologizes. He grows. His mistakes never define him permanently. Instead, they become opportunities for improvement. That message resonates because everyone experiences failure. Everyone carries regret. Everyone wishes they could change certain moments. Spider-Man reminds us that the future is shaped not by yesterday's mistakes, but by today's decisions. Marvel Studios appears ready to return Spider-Man to a more grounded environment. The neighborhoods of New York have always been more than a backdrop. They're part of Peter's identity. Every rooftop, every subway station, every crowded street. These familiar places remind audiences that Spider-Man isn't distant from ordinary life. He's part of it. He protects the same city he calls home. That connection has always separated him from larger-than-life heroes whose adventures unfold far beyond everyday experience. The title Brand New Day perfectly captures Peter's emotional journey. A new beginning doesn't erase old memories. It builds upon them. Peter carries every lesson from his past into an uncertain future. He remembers Tony Stark. He remembers Aunt May. He remembers MJ and Ned. Those memories continue shaping every decision he makes. Even if nobody else remembers sharing them, that quiet burden transforms Peter into a more mature, thoughtful hero than ever before. Marvel has officially confirmed the continuation of Tom Holland's Spider-Man while keeping many story details undisclosed. That secrecy has encouraged excitement without revealing the film's emotional surprises. Fans know a new chapter is coming. Exactly what that chapter contains remains a mystery. Perhaps that's appropriate, because Peter himself doesn't know what tomorrow will bring. He simply knows tomorrow deserves another chance. Ultimately, Spider-Man: Brand New Day isn't merely the next Marvel movie. It's a story about resilience, about accepting loss without surrendering hope, about choosing kindness even when kindness goes unnoticed. Peter Parker has lost almost everything that once defined his life. Yet one thing remains unchanged: his belief that helping others is always worth the sacrifice. Every morning, the city wakes without remembering the young man who saved it countless times. But somewhere above the streets, a familiar figure swings between the buildings, answering cries for help before anyone even knows they need him. The world may have forgotten Peter Parker. Part 11. The last lesson of Peter Parker: Why Brand New Day is more than just another Spider-Man movie. Some stories begin with hope. Others begin with tragedy. But the greatest stories begin with sacrifice. Peter Parker has spent years protecting people who would never truly understand what it cost him to be Spider-Man. He missed birthdays. He lost loved ones. He carried guilt that would break most people. Yet through every painful chapter, he never stopped believing that doing the right thing mattered. Then came one final decision. A decision so heartbreaking that it erased Peter Parker from the memories of the entire world. His best friend no longer recognized him. The woman he loved looked into his eyes as if they had never met. The life he spent years building disappeared overnight. And yet, the next morning, Spider-Man still answered the call. No applause, no recognition, no reward, only responsibility. That single choice is the foundation of Spider-Man, Brand New Day, a story that isn't about becoming stronger, but about remaining good when the whirlwind done. Today, we'll explore why this new beginning may become the defining chapter of Spider-Man's cinematic legacy, how Marvel carefully prepared audiences for this transformation, and why Peter Parker's greatest battle has always been against the temptation to give up. Since his first appearance in Marvel Comics, Spider-Man has represented something unique. He isn't a hero because destiny chose him. He became a hero because he accepted responsibility. That distinction has remained unchanged for generations. Many characters receive extraordinary abilities. Very few willingly accept the burdens those abilities create. Peter Parker never asked for an easier life. He simply accepted that power carried consequences. Every decision became another opportunity to place someone else's safety before his own happiness. That philosophy has made Spider-Man one of the most inspiring fictional heroes ever created. When the Marvel Cinematic Universe introduced Tom Holland's Spider-Man, audiences met a teenager filled with excitement and ambition. He admired Earth's mightiest heroes. He wanted to prove himself worthy. He dreamed of becoming something greater than an ordinary high school student. Marvel wisely allowed Peter to make mistakes. He acted impulsively. He underestimated danger. He occasionally let emotion guide his decisions. Those imperfections made him believable. Rather than presenting a finished hero, Marvel invited audiences to watch one grow. Each film became another lesson. Each challenge became another step toward maturity. Tony Stark played an essential role during Peter's early years. More than providing advanced technology, Tony encouraged Peter to trust his own judgment. One lesson became especially important. A hero should never depend entirely on equipment. Character matters more than armor. Years later, after losing every advantage Tony had once provided, Peter finally understood that lesson completely. The expensive suits disappeared. The powerful allies disappeared. The recognition disappeared. Only Peter Parker remained. And somehow, that version of Spider-Man became stronger than ever before. The ending of Spider-Man, No Way Home, permanently changed Peter's world. The spell cast to protect reality demanded an unimaginable price. Everyone forgot Peter Parker. Not Spider-Man. Peter Parker. Every friendship vanished. Every shared memory disappeared. The emotional weight of that sacrifice cannot be overstated. Peter alone remembers everything. He carries every conversation, every promise, every goodbye. The people he loves continue living peacefully, unaware of the pain he quietly carries. That loneliness becomes the emotional heartbeat of Brand New Day. Unlike many superheroes, Spider-Man doesn't measure success through victories alone. Sometimes saving people means losing something precious. Sometimes protecting the future requires letting go of the past. Peter understands this better than anyone. His life has become a series of impossible choices. Yet despite every sacrifice, he refuses to surrender hope. That hope isn't based on certainty. It's based on character. He believes kindness always matters, even when nobody notices. Marvel Studios appears to be guiding Spider-Man back toward the grounded storytelling that first made the character famous. The neighborhoods of New York once again become central to his identity. Instead of constantly confronting universe-ending threats, Peter has the opportunity to reconnect with ordinary people. Helping neighbors, stopping crimes before they escalate, protecting children, supporting strangers. These quieter moments often reveal far more about Spider-Man than massive battles ever could. Because true heroism is measured one person at a time. Another reason audiences continue connecting with Peter Parker is his resilience. He never pretends life is easy. He experiences fear. He experiences grief. He questions himself. But he never allows pain to become an excuse for abandoning responsibility. Every sunrise offers another opportunity to choose compassion, another opportunity to make someone else's life better. That quiet determination has inspired generations, not because Peter is fearless, because he keeps moving despite fear. The title Brand New Day reflects more than a fresh chapter. It symbolizes acceptance. Peter cannot recover everything he has lost. He cannot force the past to return. Instead, he must embrace tomorrow. That emotional journey mirrors real life. Everyone faces moments where familiar chapters end. The future becomes uncertain. The only question remaining is whether we choose to begin again. Spider-Man's answer has always remained the same. Yes, every single time. Marvel has officially confirmed the continuation of Tom Holland's Spider-Man while wisely preserving much of the film's story. That secrecy creates genuine anticipation. Rather than revealing every emotional moment before release, Marvel invites audiences to discover Peter's next journey alongside him. Sometimes the unknown creates the greatest excitement. Every official announcement becomes meaningful. Every trailer invites discussion. Every new detail offers another glimpse into Peter's future. Ultimately, Spider-Man, Brand New Day is about far more than superheroes. It's about resilience after loss. Part 12. A Brand New Day begins, the complete evolution of Spider-Man's greatest journey. There comes a moment in every hero's life when the battle is over, the city is safe, the enemy is gone, the world moves on. But the hero has to live with what happened. For Peter Parker, saving the world didn't bring peace. It brought silence. The people he loved no longer knew his name. The memories that defined his life disappeared in an instant. The future he imagined no longer existed. And yet, as the sun rose over New York City the next morning, Peter Parker made the same decision he had made countless times before. He put on the mask. Not because anyone remembered him, not because anyone expected him to, but because someone, somewhere, would need Spider-Man. That quiet decision is what makes Spider-Man Brand New Day one of the most important chapters in Marvel history. This isn't just another superhero sequel. It's the story of a young man rebuilding his life from the ground up while carrying memories no one else remembers. Today, we're exploring how Spider-Man reached this unforgettable moment, why Marvel Studios chose this bold new direction, and why Brand New Day represents not the end of Peter Parker's story, but the beginning of the Spider-Man fans have always known. For more than 6 decades, Spider-Man has stood as one of the world's most beloved superheroes. Not because he is the strongest, not because he has the most advanced technology, not because he always wins. Spider-Man endures because Peter Parker never stops trying. He falls. He struggles. He questions himself. He experiences heartbreak. Yet every single time, he chooses to stand up again. That resilience has become the defining characteristic of the character across comics, animation, games, and films. Generations have grown up watching Peter Parker face impossible odds without ever abandoning hope. When Tom Holland first appeared as Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, audiences met a teenager full of excitement and ambition. He admired the Avengers. He looked up to Tony Stark. He dreamed of proving that he belonged among Earth's greatest heroes. Marvel intentionally introduced a version of Peter who still had much to learn. He wasn't perfect. He acted impulsively. He made mistakes. But every mistake became another lesson. Every challenge shaped his understanding of responsibility. Over time, audiences watched Peter transform from an enthusiastic student into a young man capable of making the hardest decisions imaginable. Tony Stark's influence cannot be ignored. He recognized Peter's intelligence long before the world appreciated it. More importantly, he recognized Peter's kindness. Tony understood that extraordinary technology means very little without extraordinary character. Throughout their relationship, Peter learned that being a hero isn't about wearing the most advanced suit. It's about making the right decision when no one else can. Years later, after losing every advantage Tony once provided, Peter discovered that lesson had prepared him for something much greater. Standing completely alone. The conclusion of Spider-Man, No Way Home fundamentally reshaped Peter Parker's future. Faced with the collapse of reality itself, Peter accepted a sacrifice few people could imagine. He allowed the world to forget him, not because he wanted a fresh start, but because it was the only way to protect innocent lives. That decision cost him everything: friendships, love, recognition, identity. The people who meant the most to him continued their lives without remembering the role Peter had played within them. Only Peter carried those memories forward. That emotional burden becomes the heart of Brand New Day. One of Spider-Man's greatest strengths has always been his humanity. He worries about ordinary problems. He struggles to balance personal responsibilities with heroic duties. He experiences loneliness. He experiences self-doubt. Those qualities make him relatable in ways few superheroes can match. Marvel's new chapter offers an opportunity to return to those deeply personal themes. Instead of focusing solely on spectacular action, the story can explore the emotional reality of rebuilding a life from nothing. Finding a place to live. Finding meaningful work. Learning to trust people again. These challenges may appear small compared to saving the multiverse, yet they carry enormous emotional significance. Because everyone understands what it feels like to begin again. The title Brand New Day symbolizes hope born from hardship. A new beginning doesn't erase yesterday. It honors yesterday while creating tomorrow. Peter cannot reclaim what he lost. He cannot restore forgotten memories simply because he wishes to. But he can choose who he becomes next. That choice has always defined Spider-Man. Power creates possibilities. Character determines how those possibilities are used. Peter Parker has consistently chosen compassion over comfort, responsibility over recognition, and hope over despair. Marvel Studios has kept many details about the film confidential, allowing anticipation to grow naturally. Official information confirms the continuation of Peter Parker's journey while leaving the central narrative largely undisclosed. That mystery serves an important purpose. Spider-Man's stories are most effective when audiences discover Peter's emotional journey alongside him. Every challenge, every victory, every setback, every new beginning, the unknown becomes part of the experience. Another reason Spider-Man continues inspiring audiences is his refusal to become cynical. Life repeatedly tests his optimism. He loses people he loves. He sacrifices personal happiness. He carries responsibilities that would overwhelm almost anyone. Yet compassion remains at the center of every decision he makes. He never asks whether people deserve saving. He simply helps. That quiet kindness has become one of the most enduring aspects of his legacy. Ultimately, Spider-Man: Brand New Day is not simply about another adventure in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's about rediscovering purpose after unimaginable loss. It's about rebuilding identity without forgetting the past. It's about proving that true heroism isn't measured by fame, recognition, or applause. It's measured by the willingness to continue doing what's right, even when no one knows your name.